Hello and welcome to another episode of the Next Iteration podcast. This is Chirag, and with me, there's Channs. We are going to talk about today about ADRs. We're continuing that series, and today we want to talk about what are some common pitfalls that teams encounter when they're implementing and adopting ADRs. And we'll also share some of our tips on how you can get it right and how you can avoid those pitfalls. All right, so let's get started. On to you, Chance. What's the first one on your mind?
Yeah, the first one is where we start, Chirag. Though ADRs are established practice, like in some teams, and when you Google for the term architectural decision records, you'll find a mention over the last decade or so. However, what I've observed in teams, and having done this for about 4 to 5 teams, is that if you force people to start using ADRs from day one, it will generally go wrong. Because even right as a human being, if you are ill and you're supposed to take medicine, you'll not likely take everything in one go. You need to sequence it, and you'll get better over time. So that way, uh, I would say one tip to get this right is to build consensus and also be open for further adaptation in the team on like how ADRs work well for you. It could be storage, it could be linkage, it could be structure, and so on. One simple way for me, what has worked is like the first decision you make should be to decide whether ADRs are relevant for you and how do you use it for like your team. Like the title could be using ADRs to make decisions for Team Awesome. And then the team will get an opportunity to sort of dog food the concept, and you should encourage the team to contribute to that decision. And post that, slowly you can champion this cause, and also like we spoke about collaboration, you should ensure that this entire ownership is like shared with the. So that's the first one. Chirag. Do you have something else to share on this?
Yeah, yeah. So the next one I'd like to share about is that teams can, with ADRs,
Mm.
overcomplicate the process. Now, the big thing about why ADRs would be useful is if it's being used frequently by the team.
Yeah.
That it's easy to create and it's easy to consume later on. So, but if the team doesn't ends up using a process where it becomes too heavy to make a decision, it takes too much time, or the templates that the team is using becomes too complex, or the tools that are being used become ends up sort of being too complex, then that could hurt the adoption of ADRs and hurt the whole decision making process. And so, like, some tips to get it right is one, to make sure that your ADRs stay consistent. Almost define a word limit or a page limit on how big an ADR can be.
Yeah.
Like a good rule of thumb is to keep it to one or two pages at max. And the other thing to do in a similar vein is to define a time box for the process to complete the decision making for a given decision. So, sort of say that once we have identified that we have a decision to make, say that we have a week or we have a 10 days to make the decision, so that we are not so that the team doesn't end up taking and spending too much time, and instead make a decision, start to implement it, and then
Yeah.
see what they can learn from it, and then come back and revisit it later on. So instead of over
Yeah.
analyzing and over documenting, start with something simple and sensible, and then move forward. On to you, Chance. Then what's the next one that you would cover?
Yeah, fully agree on the second one, Chirag. Keeping ADRs lightweight is very fundamental for it to be successful. Third one that comes to mind, we have touched upon this in the earlier episodes, is that make ADRs accessible to everyone who are involved. I mean, what I mean is choose the right place to store the ADRs. as a developer, I earlier preferred to store ADRs very close to the source code because there were a lot of tools which could spin off templates and make it easier for me to create ADRs like in command line. But with time, I understood that that source control is not actually accessible to other people in the team. For example, let's say we are trying to create a decision on a open source library usage based on its license. So most likely your legal team is going to be involved. Or you are creating a decision which will impact the product because that technical option is like not feasible. So it would involve your promas, your BAs, and other roles. So in general, there'll be most likely some roles, if it's quite significant, that they would need to be involved. I've tried giving access to a source control, but it's that entry barrier is too high. It's like they're not able to. It's too much work to just get to a document. So I would say after that, like other than source control areas like Confluence, areas like Google Drive, or even a simple Google Sheet, many other things have been quite useful. So I would say, yeah, based on the context of the decisions, it's generally better to choose something that is accessible to everyone in the team. And if people feel comfortable using the tool, then automatically it will improve participation, collaboration, and then the quality of your decisions. That's what I could think of, Chirag.
Yeah, yeah. So then let's move to the next one. So so this one's very important. Keep in mind that a common pitfall that people teams can fall into is that they adopt the process and they interpret that the core of the process is that we should document the decision and that we should create a record of the decision and that would and that could mean that the team's sort of making decisions and then after the fact creating a document. So they are sort of thinking through a decision for 2 weeks, and at the end of that 2 weeks, when they have decided, it becomes somebody's task to write up that document. Now that's documenting the decision after the fact, and uh, doesn't give you half of the benefits that you're supposed to get
Yeah.
with this process. So that's a pitfall to avoid, and the way to get it right really is that the a lightweight document is really the starting point of the whole decision making process. So you start the decision making process with what is the conundrum that we have in front of us, write that up, and then write up what is the background context and information, and then write up what are the options in front of us, and then as you get more people to participate in that process, start capturing the key sort of context pieces that people are contributing and the key and most important
Mm,
variations of the options that you are contributing. And it's that you will have the document in front of you which is almost complete, and then you have to then you get the opportunity to make a decision and then add one line that says this is the decision we've made, and this is why, right? So that's the right way of doing of using ADRs, that you're starting by creating a document, and that document itself is helping you in your thinking. This is a bit sort of
mm,
similar to the difference between TDD and unit testing, right? Like teams
yeah.
can often, when are new to testing, can sort of interpret unit testing as this safety net that you can build into the code, and so they first think about writing the code, and then they write the code and then say, oh, now let me build a safety net, and that only gives half of the benefits. The real benefit is if you can use the unit test to clarify your thinking about what the code needs to do, and why does it need to do it, and then write the code, and then gives you sort of, that's how it results in better clearer code, and the most concise code, and so on. And so similarly with ADRs, as you start
Mm.
documenting it right from the beginning is what then results in all the benefits about improved decision making and improved collaboration and improved alignment and so on.
Agree.
So that's the tip on starting documentation right from the beginning.
Yeah. The next one I can think of, Chirag, is one more pitfall. it's making a decision but not acting on it or not enforcing it, right? It's similar to having a bunch of good-looking tests, but without any assertions, because the tests are always going to pass, so you will never get the intended feedback. So yeah, then it's the whole process becomes in sort of ineffective or just for the sake of doing, right? There is no benefit from it, and it's actually wasted opportunity and wasted investment. Uh, I think couple of tips how to get this right. One is I have worked in teams wherein every new module or any major change that you create generally goes through it actually generally goes through architecture review. So whatever let's say ADRs that you have captured, you could in a way convert that to a checklist. And now in the age of Gen AI tools, it's like easier to get that done. And as part of the review, you use the checklist to in a way very structurally go through it and voluntarily check off the box. So it will give you that sort of situation to think through and then acknowledge that you have followed those guidelines. But again, there is a review process. So again, the reviewer will also get an opportunity to like think through and then look at whether the implementation actually follows those things. And in certain cases, there could be tools which can automate this. Maybe you have chosen an event-driven architecture, or you have chosen to abstract your repository. So maybe there are certain tools to actually make those checks as part of your CI/CD pipeline. So either manually or with tools, I think the team has the responsibility to enforce that to like all the ADRs which have been committed are actually implemented.
Right. All right. So next one is that teams end up not maintaining their
Mm.
ADRs as living documents, and so teams could sort of treat ADRs as a static one-time thing that gets written and then, but if that ADR is not being read and consumed over time, and if it's not getting updated and not getting reviewed frequently, then it loses its
Yeah,
benefits. So treat ADRs as living document, and as your software evolves, as your system evolves, so should the documentation of your decisions. So keep, create some schedule to review your ADRs once in a month, once in a few iterations, and make sure that you are keeping them up to date,
mm,
because the confidence that these are up to date is what will encourage people to consume it, encourage people to read it, and the fact that people are reading it is what will encourage people to keep it up to date. So there's a positive loop
yeah,
about it, and so maintain your ADRs as living documents. That's important.
fully agree. Yeah. Uh, the next one, Chirag, I think this is again obvious. If you overdo ADRs, it's not good. And it's akin to writing a unit test for a one-line method or for every method or even maybe for a random function number generator. So that leads to waste, and you don't need it, right? It's a Yagni principle. So you will end up generating too much documentation, and I think people are going to resent the process. Then if they are, and it's going to lose the impact. How to get it right? I would say ask yourself if a decision is significant, and I would look at it in two dimensions. One is there a measurable impact on your software or hardware or business? Right, you will have some KPIs or OKRs. You will know what it's going to impact, and if it's high, then you need to document it formally. The second thing is ask in like three sort of levels that whom does a decision affect? If it's only you, probably it's not important, and if it affects a lot of people, then it is. Then you should talk about how easy is it to reverse a decision. If you could just put a toggle, or it's very easy to reverse, again, it's not important. But if it's very hard to reverse, and you are sort of locking in yourself to that decision and there's ripple effects everywhere, that is where that decision is going to become important. And the last one is cost. If it's very easy to change the decision without no cost implication, it's probably not as important. But again, when all these combination of factors will actually let you know if a decision is significant or not. So use ADR judiciously for significant decisions only.
Great. And so the next one I want to come to then is that teams can sometimes with ADRs miss out on clarifying who the decision makers are
Yeah.
in in every context. So because it is a highly collaborative process, and there are several benefits to making it collaborative, uh, and so multiple people are involved and they are contributing synchronously and asynchronously onto a document that is constantly
Mm.
being updated in the process of that decision making. Sometimes people can then then not be clear as to where does the buck stop or who is finally responsible for taking the final call on this decision, and that can lead to frustration if everyone feels that they should have the power to veto the decision, or at the same time it could also lead to paralysis, where if everyone
Mm.
sort of feels like, oh, this is a very big decision, how do I make, how do I, it'll be against my name if this decision is made, so then it can also paralyze people on the team. And so what is important is that is that team should clarify who the decision makers are. Like, so in case of a
Yes.
technical decision, it might be the tech lead and a couple of senior developers who together are signing up to sort of be the people who will gather inputs from, of course, everybody, and ideas from everybody is welcome and useful, but they can say, that those two people or three people will take the final call. And so that creates clarity about who is sort of finally empowered to break the tie,
Yeah.
and that also then is generally associated with who is broadly taking responsibility for delivering the right outcomes on those aspects in the team as well. So that's important to make it clear as to who is empowered to break the tie and who is overall then taking the responsibility and accountability of that aspect of the decision making process.
Maybe we have time to squeeze in one more, Chirag, and this is a bit meta. The pitfall is being biased and not building a feedback loop for the ADR process itself. People sometimes say that, okay, this is one more shiny technique, it's a sensible default, and now we have followed it. It has worked well for a bit. Let's use the same. You cannot like set things in stone. Like everything needs a feedback loop. So I think simple tips would be, yeah, leverage your retrospective events or any similar feedback events to assess how well the ADR process is like working for you. Maybe you want to tweak the template, which is a structure. Maybe you want to focus on particular aspects of the structure. Maybe you want to change the storage and so on. So maybe you will keep getting feedback as you hear. And also I would say, yeah, it like if you have an ADR process, it should not be done by only one person. Like I think we have spoken about collaboration quite a bit. As and when many people start using ADRs, it becomes a common process, like how you do pair programming and so on. So I would say empower other people, or yeah, mentor other people to start also using ADRs and actually advocating for the process. Then you will get the real feedback, and based on your context, you are fully free to do what is right for you and your.
All right. Yeah. So let's sum it up, right? So ADRs can be a fantastic tool if you adopt it for decision making in in your team, and it creates a huge bunch of benefits in the short term as well as in the long term. But it is important to avoid some of these pitfalls that we've talked about, and so keep these tips in mind, that start with consensus, keep areas simple, ensure that they are accessible, treat them as living documents, ensure that the ADRs are used in the process throughout and not post facto, and so on. Bring in that feedback loop, keep reflecting on how it is working for you and how you can continuously improve it as well. Right. So those are some thoughts from Chands and me. Till we see you next time then. Bye bye.